Hello and welcome back to Friday Rants. Today's rant, Governor Sisolak and the pandemic. Every time Governor Steve Sisolak gives a speech or an announcement about Nevada, giving Nevada an update on and a new direction for our recovery from one of the fakest disease pandemics that has ever faced the earth, people wait with bated breath, absolutely at Twitter, to find out what major pronouncement he's going to make. And this week's, or the one just before Valentine's Day, just like the last one that he gave about a month previously, was a complete nothing burger. I read the text, I got the email, I looked back through it, and essentially nothing has changed, which is sort of ironic because at the end, there are references to two things. Number one, a 1st May 2021 date, but there's no information about how that was chosen or what's going to happen between now and then to change the numbers, but more on the numbers in a second. And a return to in-person instruction. It is clear that whoever is getting through to the governor, he is getting pummeled with pushback from individuals who know that education is inefficient when it is done in a virtual environment. Just a few Sundays ago, I turned down a request, I guess, to teach the adults in Sunday school because I didn't want to teach it over Zoom, because I know about the inefficiencies and ineffectiveness of online instruction. I have 4 students in one of my classes who've already submitted more labs than we've actually met for because they're open and they can do them at any time. This means they haven't discussed things with us. And as my biology labs doing concentration calculations this week learned, there were points in the pre-lab and their preparedness from the documents available without having spoken to me was subpar. So here we have 2 dates. So the numbers for getting out and getting together remain at 35% for most places and 50% for special cases. Those are basically things that the state needs to have running in order to make money and pay for the budget. So churches are still stuck at 35% capacity, et cetera, and there's been no indication of what's going to happen between now and the 1st of May to change that from 35 or 50 to a more normal and nominal level. Instead, I think Governor Sisolak just feels pressured to give us an update, to talk, and make it sound like, by using gerunds, that's a word that ends in ing, that he's actually accomplished something. Politicians do this all the time. They will talk about how they are working towards, or they are talking about, or we are contributing to. Well, that's not the same as an achievement. Running a race is a lot different from having won 3rd place. Running a fever is also a lot different from having overcome the disease. And I'm going to use that as my segue into the other part of this rant. As they talk about this, the document to which it was linked had, of course, this very large and excessively busy information diagram about cases and health information in the state. I'm colorblind, so the colors on it don't mean anything to me, but what I did notice is various shades of gray. And the various shades of gray, I'm assuming, have to do with either better or worse, the darker that you go. And I look around and think about how, and I brought this so I can knock on wood. I'll knock on it now and then I can put it away. I've actually been healthier in terms of diseases and sickness this past year than I normally am. Normally in the springtime, I catch cold. Somewhere between February and April, I will get sick. Usually it's because I'm teaching microbiology and you're in contact with pathogens in close proximity. But I think more so it's also because I'm in contact with 2 groups of students. Number 1, the students who have kids of their own who are sick. And number 2, the students who are kids who are still living in their houses, oftentimes with younger siblings. Those students will then bring whatever come as a vector and bring whatever their family members have contracted into my environment. Shutting down the state kept me out of contact with almost all children and with anyone who was even feeling remotely at risk or like they might have come in contact with something dangerous. And so I have enjoyed a year without getting sick. I know that's not universal for everyone, but it's interesting to me that the most dangerous place I go, the grocery store, is considered an essential business, and there have been no swarms of officers there to enforce the mask rule, and it's gotten better since by last summer. Most of the people were voluntarily compliant, and they weren't wearing it stupidly like so many Democrat politicians where it's under their nose or under their mouth completely. I mean, if you're going to take it off, just take it off. And it's interesting to me that despite the fact that I go there and that people weren't wearing masks, that I didn't get sick, because I think I usually get sick because of kids. Coronavirus is not a kid disease, though. And so all of these scared adults and those who, like the governor, are fear-mongering them have kept people out of my presence. Even sometimes when hiking, there are people who seem upset, and I look at them as they give me the dirty eye. Look, I'm at 7 or 8 of my 10-mile leg. I'm on my way back to the car, and if I had COVID, you would be able to tell from a half a mile away. I would be hacking and coughing and having difficulty breathing. So, yeah, I'm not the dangerous one here. Sisolak is the dangerous one. Sisolak has made 3 major mistakes in this. Number 1, shutting down essential businesses. Of course, it would take a cheesehead from Wisconsin to not recognize that casinos are an essential business in a state where predominantly our economy is based on gambling. Number 2, he shut all businesses down, carte blanche, except for government. And all government employees have drawn mostly full pay, including myself. This is the second economic shutdown. I have written and contacted the governor's office and told them they need to fire state workers who are non-essential instead of paying them to sit on their butt eating chocolate and watching Jerry Springer. No diss on Jerry Springer. That's just an example. Third mistake, he talks and says nothing. When the governor comes out, generally speaking, his announcements, his speeches, his press releases are full of words that say nothing. So it isn't necessarily that he doesn't have a plan, it's that we have no idea what the Sam Houston his plan is. He's sort of the Admiral Holdo of Nevada, a leader elevated to a position by virtue of circumstances, because most people think that Sisolak rode the coattails of the October Vegas shooting to popularity and to win the governor's mansion, who's absolutely unqualified for leadership and who no one had really heard of before until that day. I'm sure the county commission is glad to be rid of him. The rest of us would like to send him back to Wisconsin. Because he's a man who doesn't have any idea what to say, who ignores experienced leaders around him, who doesn't communicate the plan, reassures everyone that he has one, and then I'm sure will claim credit like he's some sort of hero for helping Nevada weather the storms. Oh, good God. Give me a break. Our state is usually last. If he were a hero, we would not be last in our response to COVID. And yet here we are near the bottom of the barrel like always, which just reminds me of something I will say of him that I have said of other leaders in the past. The problem with leadership is not necessarily that there are no good leaders. The problem with leadership is that while the cream rises to the top, so too does the scum. And the scum thinks it's the cream. And that's the problem. I don't think that Sisolak is scum in the term of rebel scum or scum and villainy or scum that belongs in prison. I just think he's not cream. He's definitely not creme de la creme, and he does not belong at the top. I know he thinks he does, but that's what all egomaniacal narcissists do. And that's the kind of person who, generally speaking, runs for political office and aspires to climb the ranks of power over the people. They are people who are full of themselves. And I look at Steve Sisolak's response, his missteps, and his abject lack of communication. And I knock on wood that I was a state employee and had just had to take a small furlough. Because if I had been punished by this man without any ability to have my voice known, which is generally speaking the case, because the governors of this state have generally speaking ignored me, if I had no redress, I would be pissed that he had taken away my livelihood. I call upon all Nevadans and anyone who may ever move here or may consider assisting him in any of his future political aspirations to remember that while Walmart is often vilified for coming into a community, destroying small businesses and taking away jobs, no man, no person in all time has cost Nevada so many jobs and killed so many businesses in such a short period of time as Governor Stephen Sisolak. And you should hang this economy around his neck like a millstone and let it drag him down into the depths, because on election day, you need to remember that this is the state that Steve built. And so if you don't like it, send him back to ignominy where he belongs. That's my rant. Have a great Friday.